Hey everyone, this is the Raven of the Night. I apologize for the lighting in here. It's late and so I couldn't really get the lighting to work out very well, so this is the best I could do. But right now, welcome back to another episode of Raven Reviews. This series is where I take music or any sort of media and rate them based off of my rating system. This episode I'm going to be continuing with Fairy Tail and taking the 5th opening featuring Magic Smile by Magic Party. This opening is applicable for the first episodes of Season 2, episodes 49 through 60. In case you haven't seen any of my other videos, this is how this is going to work. I'll be looking at the song through a pre-arc lens as though I've never seen the opening before, and then I will be looking through it through a post-arc lens as though I've seen all the episodes connected to it. I'll be averaging the two together in order to get one final rating. And again, spoiler alert, you have been warned, and as we are getting further into the series, there will be more and more spoilers. So without further ado, pre-arc lens on, and let's get started.
愛も夢も君とならばマジカルに変わる最後の魔法をかけよう問題だらけのパワフルな世界にちょっと憧れてた止まった時間動き始めたんだ君に出会ってからどうして生まれて生きてるのか難しい答えはいらないよ笑おうなど素直でいいシンプルな気持ち一番大事悲しい夜に流す涙強さに変える最後の魔法をかけるよ
So the opening starts out with this little girl who clearly possesses the ability to use magic. Then the title screen pops up with all the members of Team Natsu as well as a bunch of unfamiliar faces in a circle as though they're banding together for something. With the start of the new season, with the unfamiliarity, that's to be expected. Then once the verse of the song starts, a shot of Team Natsu with the fairy tale mark emblazoned across the screen appears. This is followed by a shot of Leon and Sherry next to somebody else that I don't recognize. There's another symbol that appears, so I'd guess that this means that they are all part of the same guild. The one mentioned briefly at the end of the Galuna Island arc was Lamia Scale, so that might be the guild that they are all representing. Then there's a shot of complete strangers with another symbol flashing across the screen. And then finally, the blue-haired girl from the beginning is accompanied by a white cat, very much like Happy. Perhaps these people are all working together for a single goal, especially with another shot of all of them just together. This is followed by a dark and ominous shot of Urza looking towards a cross of some sort with a faded-in image of Jalal. Perhaps she is still chained to her past in that regard and she's going to come to more closure with the Tower of Heaven. But let me just say right now, I think that the Tower of Heaven arc ended well, and while I believe that she will still be recovering from everything she went through and everything she just recently went through, adding too much to that storyline or complicating things could bode poorly for the show. Then there's this giant machine with 6 legs. Maybe this is the threat that all the other people are gathered together to fight against, who knows really. And then there's a shot of a bunch of other new characters showing up. However, based off of their appearance and expressions, I can assume that these are not allies to, say, Fairy Tail and the other guilds, or I assume to be guilds. This is especially true as it appears the members accompanying Team Natsu are working together to fight against these other people. There's a shot of Lucy between Loki and Ares. Is it possible that Ares will come into play here? Because it's kind of interesting since she hasn't really been mentioned since the Loki arc after the whole Phantom Lord incident. With the death of Karen, her key could have fallen into somebody else's hands, and thus for Loki and Lucy to meet Ares again is not completely unheard of or crazy. I just hope it's for Lucy's benefit. Then there's a shot of Natsu fighting against a guy on top of a flying purple snake. Even saying this now, I'm slightly confused and just what about this, because a giant flying snake. Now, at this point, I've come to accept that there are flying cats in this universe, but flying snakes just kind of takes it a whole new level. So after a couple quick shots of some of the other characters, the opening ends with a shot of Happy and this white cat both flying away, and then Natsu and the blue-haired girl seem to mirror each other. Before Team Natsu, the blue-haired girl and the white cat are all together in a group. And that's the end of the opening. Perhaps this girl has a connection to Natsu, or maybe she develops a close relationship with him somehow. With the way that they parallel each other in the opening, I can't imagine that they aren't connected somehow. So here are my scores. For story, I'm going to give a half point because while there are plenty of characters and I can infer who may be fighting whom, there's no real showing of what the motivation of the fights will be or what the ultimate goal is. Then for individual characters, I'm going to give a point because with all the new characters and reintroduction of some of the old characters such as Leon and Sherry, there's boundless potential for character development during this arc. Then for visual, I'm going to give another half point because there seems to be a logical progression of things, showing different teams or people. However, at the beginning, there's 20 seconds of just two sweeping shots that are stoic and rather uninteresting. They don't really add much in terms of plot or story. True, they introduce the blue-haired character, but beyond that, not really anything all that important there. Then for music, I'm going to give 3/4 of a point. Based off of the title and the rhythm itself, this is a much more upbeat song. Even with the darker shots featuring Jalal and other people that I assume to be the antagonists of the show, it sounds like the singer is acknowledging that there may be difficulties, but if you could just smile through the hard parts, then there will be happiness and success at the end. That's what I get out of hearing this blindly, but it's not one of the most memorable melodies or rhythms, so that's why it doesn't get a full point. And then for overall effect, I'm going to give it a half point, because with the start of a new season, the opening is very much like the first opening. Of course, I'm referencing Snow Fairy. There's a ton of new characters that have been introduced, and overall very little coherence or hints as to what will exactly occur during this arc. So that totals for a 3.25 out of 5. So far, I'm kind of disappointed because, as I mentioned earlier, the visual parts with the really slow shots and general vagueness of the opening just don't seem to add up. But for right now, let's move on. Post-arc lens on. So this blue-haired girl that becomes very prominent in this opening is the Sky Dragon Slayer Wendy Marvel. My guess about her being parallel to Natsu somehow seems to be relatively accurate. However, because she is so much younger than everyone else, we haven't seen her magic yet beyond her healing both Jalal and Urza, and then her white cat, Carla, is very upset at the fact that Wendy needs to use her magic more and more, possibly beyond her capabilities. I really like that in the show, the shot of the entire group of the Allied forces is different than that is shown in the opening. This is since Wendy and Happy were taken captive and Urza was put out of commission due to Cobra's poison. I like that the opening doesn't spoil that they are missing at this point in the story and that other bad things happen. So here are my general rankings. For story, I'm going to give 3/4 of a point because the opening, despite what I said pre-arc, does tell a lot more about the story than I had originally expected. It references the different fights that take place, the awakening of Nirvana, and the reviving of Jalal. What part he plays in this story is yet to be determined because so far he's only failed at destroying Nirvana, and he's more of a dead weight to Urza right now more than anything else. Then for individual characters, I'm going to give a point because while there are still some characters that we know next to nothing about, such as Midnight, with all the new characters from Lamia Scale, Blue Pegasus, and Kate Shelter, there are lots of introductions. Granted, in the show, there is a lot of exposition to introduce these characters, but I can't think of another way to effectively show off the individual personalities of the new people, so I'm going to give a point there. And then visually, I'm going to give another point because the transitions between the shots are clean. Visually, it is clear when a moment being shown is lighter or darker based off of the color scheme, and as I said before, most of the major events that take place in this arc are represented in the opening, and they're represented in such a way that is both accurate, but it doesn't spoil the end. Musically, I'm going to give a half point because, like I said, pre-arc, the song isn't particularly memorable like, say, Snow Fairy, and there's a lot of dark moments that I think that the music fails to represent, such as Loki being forced to fight Ares, the effects of Nirvana changing the hearts that waver between light and dark. I mean, that's literally a power that sees into your heart and forces you to go to a side that maybe you don't want to go to, such as in Sherry's case. So for overall effect, I'm going to give 3/4 of a point because it's not a bad opening in my opinion. It's accurate, there are not much in terms of spoilers, and it's clean. My main qualm with it is the music, but most likely this is because the style takes a different approach from the previous season. However, this could represent the changes that the characters go through in general and a change in tone of the show, but as of right now, I don't really see that because it's still lighthearted, but it does have its dark, serious moments that I think the music in the opening needs to figure out how to represent that properly. So total for post-arc, this is going to be a 4 out of 5. And then totaling pre-arc and post-arc, that's a 7.25 out of 10, or a 72.5%. Like I said many times before, this opening wasn't as good as, say, Snow Fairy to me, and the slightly lower score than Snow Fairy does represent that. Do you agree with what I've said? Let me know down in the comments what you think. Is there something else that I should be considering while looking at these openings? And let me know if there are any other openings, soundtracks, or songs that you want me to review. And now, like a raven, I fly into the darkness. See you next time.